سلام على قبر يزار من البهيج سلام على الروضة وفيها محمد سلام على من زار في الليل ربه فبلغه المرغوب في كل مقصد سلام على من قال للرب من أنا فقال رسول الله أنت محمد.
Alright, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. It is the month of Rabi al-Awwal, and I understand that there are some different opinions on this month and Mawlid. We're gonna ignore all that. We're gonna use this month as an opportunity to learn the Sunnah, to learn more about the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So yeah, we decided to hold this talk on the birth of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And yeah, Algorithm is going to be doing the lecture. We are going to record it. It will be on our YouTube. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you everyone for joining.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي رب زدنا علما رب زدنا علما رب زدنا علما سبحانك لا علم اللهم سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, as this is the month of Rabi al-Awwal, and most of the scholars believe that this was the month of the birth of the Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, I wanted to take this opportunity to tell you a bit about the circumstances surrounding the birth of the Blessed Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. First of all, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, as you all know, he was descended from Ismail alayhi salam, who was the son of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And Sayyiduna Ibrahim alayhi salam, he had two sons, Ishaq alayhi salam and Ismail alayhi salam. And from Ishaq alayhi salam came all the prophets after him, except for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was from the descendants of Sayyiduna Ismail alayhi salam. And then from Sayyidina Ismail alayhi salam there came the tribe of Quraysh, and from the Quraysh there was a man called Hashim, who was the great-grandfather of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then there came his son Abdul Muttalib, who was he was named Abdul Muttalib because his uncle Hashim's father was named Muttalib, and when Muttalib entered into the city, Abdul Muttalib was riding behind him, so everyone called him Abdul Muttalib, the slave of Muttalib. And he was the grandfather of the Prophet ﷺ. He was a very powerful and beautiful and handsome man, and he had 11 sons. So first I wanted to speak a bit about him and some of the events that occurred before the blessed birth of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Abdul Muttalib, he was sleeping at Al-Hijr, and he saw a dream. And the Hijr is the part of the Kaaba. If you go to the Kaaba, there is the cube, and then there's a round shaped beside it, which was originally part of the Kaaba, but because they didn't have enough materials, they didn't make that as part of the Kaaba, and thus it's still counted as being part of the Kaaba, even though technically it is outside of the building. So he was sleeping in that area, and he saw a dream, and he was told to drink Tayba. And he asked, "What is Tayba?" And the dream came to an end. Then the next day, he had another dream in which he was told to dig Barra. And he asked, "What is Barra?" And then the dream came to an end. The third day, he saw a dream and he was told to dig Madmuna. And he asked, "What is Madmuna?" And the dream came to an end. And then the fourth day, he saw a dream and he was told to dig Zamzam. And he asked, "What is it?" And he was told that it is a well that will never deplete. And then he was informed of its exact location. He was shown the exact location of the Zamzam, because the Zamzam well, it had come from the time of Ismail alayhi salam, but it had been lost. They didn't know where it was. It had been buried. And thus he was told in his dream where this Zamzam well was. So he took his son Al-Harith and started to dig. And he started to say, "Allahu Akbar," as he dug. And while digging, the Quraysh came around and saw water there and started saying, "This water belongs to all of us, because we're all descendants of Ismail alayhi salam, and this is the well of Ismail alayhi salam." Right? And then Abdul Muttalib, he replied that no, this was instructed to me in my dream, so it belongs to me. And if it weren't for my dream, you wouldn't have known about it. So they decided to go to a third party to judge, and they went to a man from Banu Sa'ad, which is a bit far. So a group of them got together, and they left on their caravan, and they reached a point where they ran out of food and water. They had nothing to eat or to drink. They thought they were going to die. So they were prepared for death. They were like, "This is it." And they started digging their graves. And as they started doing that, Abdul Muttalib walked towards his camel, and suddenly, from the feet of the camel, water started gushing out miraculously, and the leaders of the Quraysh who were with him were shocked. And they said, "This is a sign that you should be in fact in charge of the water." And this is how he became in charge of the Zamzam well. Now a few points about this. When he was digging that well, it was very hard for him, and so he made an oath that, "O Allah, if you give me 10 sons, I will sacrifice one of them for you. If you give me 10 sons to support myself with, I will sacrifice one of them for you." and this will come to play later on, as we'll see. And then you can also see that he was shouting Allahu Akbar, and it's the opinion of the majority of scholars that all the ancestors of the Prophet ﷺ were people who didn't engage in polytheism. They believed in one God, Allah, and didn't engage in polytheism. So after that, I want to talk about another event that happened before the birth of the Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, also concerning his grandfather Abdul Muttalib. In Yemen, there was a man named Abraha, and he ordered the building of a large monastery in a place called Sana'a, and he wanted people to make pilgrimage to that monastery instead of going to the Kaaba. So he was kind of jealous of the Kaaba and wanted people to come to his monastery instead. So one of the Arabs from Bani Kinana heard of this place, and he decided to go to this monastery. And he decided to degrade it by defecating in its direction. When Abraha heard of this, he got extremely angry, and he prepared a huge army with 60,000 soldiers and 9 huge elephants. And then they set off towards Mecca to destroy the Kaaba. And as they reached the valley of Mina, they camped there, and along the way they were taking people's crops, taking people's animals. So, and amongst the animals they had taken were also the sheep that belonged to Abdul Muttalib. The people of Mecca, they had abandoned their homes and were hiding in the mountain because they didn't want to be destroyed in this destruction. And since Abdul Muttalib, he was a leader, he was a leader figure amongst the people of Mecca, he went out to meet Abraha, and he had an awe to him. So when Abraha met him, out of awe, he got down from his throne and sat on the floor with Abdul Muttalib. Abdul Muttalib then asked him to return his flock of sheep, and Abraha was kind of astonished, and he kind of his awe of Abdul Muttalib went down a little, and he said, I find it degrading for someone of your stature to come here and ask for their own personal wealth when I have come to destroy your holy place. And then Abdul Muttalib said his famous lines, I am the master of the sheep, so I will protect the sheep, and the one who is the master of the Kaaba, he is the one who will protect the Kaaba. And after that, Abraha agreed to return the sheep, and Abdul Muttalib returned to the mountains where the rest of the people of Mecca were hiding. And as Abraha tried to march on towards the Kaaba, his lead elephant refused to march. It stopped. When they turned it in another direction, it would go. But when they made it face the Kaaba, it refused to go. It stopped. And then, in the horizon, a sea of birds appeared, each of them having 3 stones, one in the beak and 2 in each of the talons. And these birds, they dropped the rocks on the heads of Abraha and his army. A lot of them were killed, some of them ran away, and Abraha was struck too, and he was wounded. He tried to return to Yemen, but he died before he could make it back. And this event is referenced in the Quran. There's a whole chapter about this, Surah Fil. And this year, when this event happened, is also the same year that our blessed Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born. Now the father of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was a man named Abdullah. He was the son of Abdul Muttalib, and he was considered the most intelligent of the sons of Abdul Muttalib, and also the most chaste of them. And thus his father, his brothers, and the people of the Quraysh generally, they loved him because of his beautiful nature. And as I told before, Abdul Muttalib had promised to sacrifice one of his sons if he got 10 sons. And he did get 10 sons. So now it had come time for him to sacrifice one of them. So he gathered his children and he told them that when digging Zamzam, he had made a vow to sacrifice one of his sons if Allah gave him 10 sons to support him. And then they decided to draw lots, and their names were written on arrows. And the name of each son was written on an arrow, and they were taken to the Kaaba, and in there was one man whose sole task was to cast arrows and do stuff of this nature. So he cast the arrows and picked one from amongst them, and the name of Abdullah came as the one that was picked. So Abdul Muttalib took Abdullah to the Kaaba. Abdullah was ready to be sacrificed, and Abdul Muttalib was going to sacrifice him, but the people of the Quraysh, they were not happy with this, so they intervened, because as we said before, Abdullah was quite loved amongst the people of the Quraysh, and he was quite young also, so they wanted him to live. So they decided to take the advice of a woman who did divining, and she advised them that again arrows should be drawn, and on one side there should be the name of Abdullah, on the other side there should be 10 camels. Every time the name of Abdullah comes up, they should increase by 10 more camels. and they did this, and the first 10 times it shows the name of Abdullah, and then the 11th time they get the camels. So they had to increase the camels by that amount, and it ended up being 100 camels. And thus 100 camels were sacrificed in place of Abdullah. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ, he said in a hadith, I am the son of the two sacrificed ones, meaning Sayyidina Ismail alayhi salam and his father Abdullah. The wife of Abdullah was a woman named Amina bint Wahab bin Abdul Manaf, and they got married in Mecca. And while she was pregnant with the Prophet ﷺ, Abdullah was on a journey and he passed away near the city of Yathrib, which was later renamed Medina, because Abdullah, he had sorry, my mic got turned off. Can you hear me now? Okay. So he had some relatives in Yathrib because his grandmother, the mother of Abdul Muttalib, was from Yathrib. And he passed away over there and never returned to Mecca. And it's possible that he didn't even know that his wife was pregnant, and he didn't know about the Prophet ﷺ being born or any of that before he passed away. Now we'll come to the blessed birth of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is narrated that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born at the time of high noon. There are different opinions of when he was born, but one of the earliest books of Sirah, the book by Ibn Ishaq, says that he was born on the 12th of Rabi al-Awwal, and that's what the majority of people, the most famous opinion of when he was born. We know he was born in the year of the elephant. So in the same year when Abraha came to try to destroy the Kaaba, the Prophet ﷺ was born in that same year. In the Musnad of Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, rahimahullah, there is a hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said, when my mother gave birth to me, my mother saw a light emanate from her that cast its light and reached all the way to Busra in the land of Sham. Now Busra is a city in the southern side of Syria, which is bordering near the border of Saudi Arabia. And they say, and this light illuminated the palaces of the city of Busra. The scholars say that this narration is a proof of the holiness of the land of Sham, and of course Sham includes what in modern day the countries of Syria, of Palestine, and of Jordan. So this whole land is considered a holy land, and this is one of the reasons, one of the proofs of that, alongside many hadiths on the virtues of Sham. As the Quran also states that Baraka hawlahu Masjid al-Aqsa alladhi baraka hawlahu, the land around Masjid al-Aqsa, which is Sham, is which Allah Ta'ala blessed. And Prophet ﷺ also predicted that Sham will remain a fortress of Islam, and that there will always be a group of believers there who will be steadfast on Islam. And it is also the first major conquest of Islamic history after the Arabian Peninsula. The scholars also say that when the Prophet ﷺ was born, the jinn, before that the jinns were able to access the heavens. As you all know, Iblis used to go to the angels and the gatherings of the angels, and he was even counted amongst the angels, even though he was a jinn. But they say at this time the entrance of the jinns into the heavens was stopped, and when they try to go, they are pelted with fire. Other scholars say that this was at the time of the start of the prophethood and not at the time of the birth. So there's a bit of a difference of opinion on this. The Prophet ﷺ was named Muhammad by his grandfather Abdul Muttalib, because his father Abdullah had passed away before his birth. So his grandfather Abdul Muttalib named him, and this is a rather unusual name. So when people asked Abdul Muttalib, why did you name him Muhammad? He replied that I want him to be praised in the heavens and also be praised on the earth, as he is praised praised in the heavens. And when the news of the birth of the Prophet ﷺ spread, then the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, Abu Lahab, heard of this, and the slave girl that came running to tell him about this news was named Thuwayba, and he freed her in happiness of the birth of his nephew. But of course we know that Abu Lahab never became a Muslim. He's even cursed in the Quran. In the Quran, and they say that in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, rahimahullah, there's also a narration that says that Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, who was the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, the brother of Abu Lahab and Abdullah and Sayyidina Hamza and Abu Talib. And so Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he saw his brother Abu Lahab in a dream, and he saw him being punished with the utmost severe punishment of punishments. So Abbas said to him Did not your relation to the Prophet ﷺ benefit you? And Abu Lahab replied, No, except for one thing I did, that when the good news came that he was born, I freed Thwaiba, the slave girl Thwaiba, and because of this I am allowed a few drops of water. So you can see that through the blessings of the Prophet ﷺ, even disbelievers like Abu Lahab got a bit of respite in their punishment. And with this I'll conclude my talk on the blessed birth of the Prophet ﷺ. وآخر دعوانا وأن الحمد لله رب العالمين.
Can you, sorry, give me a second. Can you clarify, there are some views that the parents of the Prophet ﷺ won't enter Jannah. Can you clarify that?
Yeah. So there's a narration where the Prophet ﷺ said to one of the Sahaba that my Ab and your Ab are both in the fire. Ab usually means father. So some of the scholars took this to mean that the parents of the blessed Prophet ﷺ are in the fire, but the majority of the scholars say that the entire ancestry of the Prophet ﷺ, none of them were polytheists, all of them were people who believed in one God. And they say when the Prophet ﷺ said Ab over here, he's actually referring to his uncle Abu Lahab, because Ab can also be used for a paternal uncle. So according to those scholars, that this hadith is not referring to Abdullah, but rather to Abu Lahab.
I guess no more questions then. Alright, thank you everyone for joining this talk. I recommend all of you to check out the announcement. There are 2 books in the announcement we mentioned that have the entire whatever algorithm talked about, the Sirah, the Prophet ﷺ. So do check that out. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you everyone. Jazakallah khair.